Hello and welcome to Health with Sneha, where we talk about all things health. And today we are going to be talking about another infectious disease. It's called monkeypox, and the reason why it is called monkeypox is because it was discovered in the year 1958. It was first seen in monkeys. Not to say that other animals are not hosts, they do not carry this virus. They do. Rodents do carry this infection. Now, why are we discussing monkeypox when it is not seen in many countries and when it was discovered in 1958? So what's the news here? The news here is that it's always been seen in African countries. It's also endemic in certain African countries, but now cases are being seen in Europe. 8 countries in the Europe. We're also seeing cases in Spain, Portugal, Switzerland in the Europe, and we're seeing cases in the US as well. Now, experts have expressed concerns about the fact that many of the patients do not have any travel history to African countries. So where did they really pick this infection from? That's a big concern. To talk about this and much more as far as monkeypox is concerned, I am being joined by Dr. Mona Lisa Sahu, consultant infectious diseases, Yashoda Hospitals in Hyderabad. Dr. Bharat Gopal is the director, National Chest Center. Thank you both for your time here. I want to begin by asking Dr. Bharat Gopal, and that's the question that's on everyone's mind. At least I've been asked this question, in the newsroom. So it's actually the most popular question is what I believe. A lot is being said about smallpox vaccines. First of all, do we have a vaccine for monkeypox? And will the smallpox vaccine help? Dr. Gopal.
Okay. So it's almost, Sneha, I don't know if you remember, it's almost now 30 months since you took the interview regarding COVID. And it's so strange that we sit back again and now discuss another possible zoonotic disease which is crossing borders and crossing boundaries for the countries. So it's becoming very strange now, and that we are digging up data from old studies, because smallpox was something which probably the generations we have treated, even as doctors, has gone away. And probably I must be one of the last few people who would have, in my age, would have got it, because since 1979 there is no vaccine which is available now. So the first generation vaccine for smallpox is actually gone. You have few experimental vaccines which are available for people who are working in labs for these. These are available in US, but these are obviously, the availability is practically negligible. You have a modified Ankara strain vaccine, which is a 2-dose vaccine of a modified attenuated virus, which was approved in 2019. Now this vaccine, again, the problem is that since this is a disease which was limited to very, very few countries in the African continent, so the availability remains very limited. Unfortunately, that's the big problem. The only good thing, if you want to, that we already have vaccines for the strain which usually is there for monkeypox. So in case you need to step up and increase the availability of vaccines, I think looking at how we did for COVID, it should not be that big a problem, because we already have at least a vaccine which is available. It may not be in quantity, but at least the research is already there. So that is one good thing as far as this goes.
Yes, Dr. Sahu, I was talking to Dr. Gopal earlier, has also in fact been sending us inputs for TV, because we are picking the story up in a big way. What was interesting to me is something that he said, that a lot is being said about smallpox vaccine, and how many of us have got the smallpox vaccine? Even if it offers some amount of protection, those born post 1979 do not have the benefit of any protection from the smallpox vaccine. Dr. Sahu.
Yeah, somehow it got disconnected. I just couldn't listen to the previous conversation.
Okay.
The smallpox vaccine, as the virus belongs to the same family of the smallpox vaccine could offer some protection, but most of us of this era are not vaccinated. So the research is underway to redirect the smallpox vaccine, which is for the disease.
That's right. Dr. Gopal, a lot is being said about how this disease, this infection has reached European nations or America for that matter. What has happened? What has happened that is so different from what was happening in all these years, that now we see these cases in the US and in a handful of European countries?
I think personally, I feel it's more to do with awareness, and as a medical community now we have across the globe understood that what we used to think that we are one world and though no nation is different, I think that's in medical parlance is now coming to the fore. We used to think that unless you have traveled from a particular endemic country where you have a disease, you need not look for it from other countries. But I think COVID actually showed that when we were looking at China in the beginning, the cases did not come only from China, especially let's think about India. Our first few cases were from the Italian country, which the residents which came. So, the awareness has increased. We have started looking at those exotic diseases, the way we need to diagnose with the availability of PCRs and availability of diagnostics. I think that has increased tremendously in last few years. So we can actually now, something which is happening in one part of the globe, you can very easily replicate that and diagnose it in another part. So probably I feel that those cases may have been there, which may not have been picked up earlier. It's just that we are now more aware. Secondly, I think the other problem which has occurred in last few months is that there is a sudden travel boom which has occurred. I won't call it boom, but it's that people are traveling a lot. It's for their work. There was so much of travel restrictions which were there for 2 years. In last 6 months, once you have almost done away, most of the countries have done away with those restrictions. So this was bound to occur, that you will have some flip-flop of some diseases from one endemic area to another. But again, the problem is that we do not know where this outbreak has actually started, because even those cases in UK and Europe, a lot of them did not have travel. So I think as we used to talk about COVID, I think it's the airports which are the biggest churning bowls, because you cross people, you probably pick up, you may not have gone, but every airport would be visited by people who are coming from some endemic country. So you may be actually passing on these infections. And I think it's the awareness programs like this which would actually make everyone aware, especially people who are traveling, to not only get worried or maybe aware about monkeypox, but there's so many diseases when you visit any country. I think it's always better to have those basic concepts of hygiene whenever we are traveling. I think that is something which would probably go a long way.
More so because the US CDC has said that actually household disinfectants can go a long way in keeping the virus away from us. That is extremely important. Dr. Sahu, I think the basics remain unchanged, washing your hands, avoiding contact, with your eyes without washing your hands or touching your mouth, or like Dr. Bharat Gopal was saying, that take these extra precautions when you're traveling around, especially it becomes all the more important. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can, you must take these precautions. Dr. Sahu.
Yeah, exactly as Dr. Gopal said, these basic measures of hygiene are extremely important. And even while taking care of the patients or suspected patients, we should also be taking personal precautions, and if possible, be using the personal protective equipments like use of gloves and masks, as these diseases can be transmitted by the various secretions from the lesions as well. So keeping hygiene as well is very important. It goes a long way in the protecting.
Yes, goes a long way. Dr. Gopal, I don't think there is much reason to be extremely worried or panic, because, I mean, at the end of the day, we've had 2.5 years of dealing with COVID-19 pandemic. Obviously, when you don't know much, there is a lot of, stress around an infection, a new disease. What on earth is this? Will we die? I think it's very important to tell our viewers, and please do that the fatality rate remains extremely low in monkeypox, doesn't it?
The issue is that a disease which is anyway does not have so much of affecting so much of population, even in African continents. So we cannot actually go and stress on the mortality when we do not have so much of data available. You have varying data varying between 3% to 5%, which would probably spread more panic, because COVID had less than 1%. But I think since the numbers are very low, I think it is, and the patients or the mortality is more in people who are as usually immunocompromised, patients who are malnourished, patients who are anyway prone to dying from other disease too. So let's put it into correct perspective. Those people who, if you look at, probably just look at this, if you leave the second wave where we had a very strange phenomena because because of many reasons, COVID also affected, and even today when we see COVID patients, it's the people who are elderly, immunosuppressed. So all these virals, even a chickenpox can create a lot of complications in elderlies or people who have never had a chickenpox exposure. And if they develop a bronchopneumonia because of chickenpox, they can have bad consequences. So let's not panic. I think one thing COVID has taught us is that if we keep our wits about and we actually follow those basic things, probably we will be able to actually ward off any of these communicable infections. So I think that is something which we need to understand. We can't throw caution to the wind the way we are roaming around, even thinking everything is gone away. Unfortunately, that was the reason, if you remember, when we were discussing about TB. This is why we could not actually control TB for so long. So one way we always do feel that maybe COVID has taught us those etiquettes and behavioral changes which may prevent a long way in actually preventing spread of communicable diseases. So these are basic etiquettes which probably now by 2 years everybody should have learned.
Dr. Gopal and Dr. Sahu, I'm just going to come in to say something because you said that, because we ignored tuberculosis, it spread. And for the longest time, it was thought that tuberculosis is a poor man's disease. That never really was the case. That never really was the case to think that tuberculosis was only a poor man's disease. Similarly, with monkeypox, for the longest time, it was believed because it is found in African nations that this is a black man's disease. This is not the case because we are moving around and borders have become our borders are such that it's easier to move from one place to the other. We are more in contact with each other, like Dr. Gopal said, that at airports you see people from so many countries at any international airport. Is there any way to escape it? I think the answer is no. I just want to bring out two tweets which really caught my attention, and I'm going to quote Professor Devi Sridhar and also another professor whom I really respect, Dr. Madhupai. First, what Professor Devi Sridhar said, and this question is to you, Dr. Sahu. She says, this is a known disease for decades, control about tracing, contacts, isolation and vaccination. Contact tracing, isolation for 3 weeks and vaccination, limited availability unfortunately for us. But that is something that should be done. Also, she says, expect to see increase in cases in the next few days. Is this something that we all should be getting up for, Dr. Sahu?
Definitely we should be being more aware of the symptoms, increase the awareness about the disease, and so that we can, if we come across the diseases, we can have an early diagnosis if we are aware of it. So spreading the awareness is very essential. And as about 14 of the countries have already got the disease, a few cases have been reported. So in the near future, even we may come across them, and keeping our guards high would be better always.
Yes. Dr. Madhupai in fact tweeted saying that now that monkeypox, Dr. Gopal, is affecting rich nations, I expect great progress in tests, vaccines and most importantly antivirals. First of all, do tell us a little about the antiviral which is available, and what if it comes to my country? What if it enters India? Will I have access to a vaccine that you just mentioned, the one that was approved in 2019, or will I at least have access to antivirals? What is my position as an Indian going to be, Dr. Gopal? Dr. Gopal, the question was to you. Okay, we seem to have lost the line with Dr. Gopal. I'll put that question. Okay, can you hear
Hello.
me? Dr. Gopal, can
you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I said that the position is going to be the same for all of us globally because we hardly have any availability of those vaccines and treatment. There is one specific treatment called tecovirimat, which has been approved very recently. So this is for emergency use only. The vaccine also, the CDC recommends that the vaccine which is available, even if you give within 4 days of exposure, it is almost like a pre-exposure shot. So if you have not taken, or if you are going to a country where you have lots of cases in future, probably CDC will come out and WHO will come out with guidelines who should be vaccinated. It will be on priority basis, obviously. I think the next question which you asked, where do we stand? I think as a public, what we need to understand is that the vaccine is not going to be available immediately. It is not going to be possible for general public, and I don't think hopefully there will not be any need. But what we need to understand is that the awareness has to be very important. People who are traveling, people are going through international airports. If you come back and get fever, so don't only think about COVID, just watch your symptoms, isolate as you should for even COVID, because so that you don't spread it to your close ones, right? So that's the only way.
Yes.
And then if you develop a rash, which is going to be very typical, you can develop lymph nodes or some glands in your neck and throat. So if you have those times, these are not common, these are not at all there in COVID. So if you're getting any of these symptoms, I think you should connect with your nearest your doctor, and he would guide you how to actually go about it. But the first thing is going to be probably isolation, so that you don't spread it to others.
Sure.
Because before you actually get rashes, you can spread it even from human to human. Spread is possible.
Yeah, that's right. Human to human transmission is limited, but it is very possible. Dr. Gopal, Dr. Mona Lisa Sahu, thank you both for joining us, sharing with us your views on that important story. It's extremely important to bust the myths surrounding monkeypox, also not ostracize anyone, Africa or any other country when it comes to this infection. We are in this together because like COVID has taught us, no one is safe until everyone is safe, and I think that also applies to all infections because the world really is one community. Thank you viewers for connecting. Hope this information and this broadcast was useful. Thank you for joining once again.
Thank you, Sneha. Thank you.